know your Marvel and DC minutia, the name Jason Aaron might sound familiar.
Last year, Jason made his mark on the world of comic books in a very big way by reinventing Thor and writing the recent edition of Star Wars.
And here's the really surprising part. He lives in Prairie Village.
So John McGrath, who's been known to frequent comic book stores himself, dropped in on one of the industry's hottest properties.
Office. It's where I get to sit and make up stories every day. Kind of what I had always wanted to do since I was a kid, but it's a hard business to break into, so I just never really knew how. And I grew up in Alabama in the deep South in a small town, and then I moved to Kansas City about 14 years ago. And I always figured you kind of had to live in New York to work in comics, and for the longest time you did, but things are very different these days, and that it doesn't really matter where you're from. A lot of the stuff I do, I work with people who are literally from all over the world, like the book Scalp that I did, which was one of my first big books. That was an international team that put that together, and that the guy drawing the interiors was Croatian and lived in Barcelona. The guy drawing the covers was Scottish and lived in England. The lady who colored it was Italian and lived in London. I lived in Kansas City. The editors were in New York. And then we all worked together to do a book that was set in South Dakota. And somehow that all worked and made sense. Yeah, that's usually the question I get when if I'm at a party or something, or just talking to an average person, and I tell them I write comics for a living. They always ask, "Oh, so you can draw?" If you think of it in terms of making a movie, I'm basically the screenwriter, and that I write a full script that has the dialogue, the action, everything, just like you would see for a movie. The only difference is that it's broken down into specific images. So yeah, I'll say, this page, 4 panels. The first panel, we see the ship heading towards the landing bay. Second panel, ship's landing. We see this guy waiting with a bunch of stormtroopers. Third panel, tight on that guy, and he says this stuff. Fourth panel, the doors start to open. So, just like you would write for a movie script, you're saying everything that happens. Well, I've been writing Thor for a few years now. I did 25 issues of a book called Thor: God of Thunder. This is Thor #1, which was the first appearance of the new female Thor. I knew pretty quickly that I wanted that to be a woman for a couple of different reasons. One, it's a story we haven't really seen before. Over the course of Thor's, very long publication history at Marvel, about 60 years at this point. Over that course, we've seen a lot of different people pick up the hammer from time to time. Very rarely have those characters been women. This is where she first picked up the hammer. And the women who did pick it up usually only picked it up for an issue or so, and slung it around a little bit and put it down and carried on. So I didn't want to do that story. I wanted someone to come along and pick up the hammer and carry it for an extended period of time and really become the new Thor. This is kind of a continuation of what I'd been doing in Thor: God of Thunder, the previous Thor book. So I knew I wanted this new Thor not to be a brand new character we'd never heard of, but to be someone from Thor's corner of the Marvel Universe. So given that, it all kind of made sense that this new Thor would be a lady. So yeah, wanted it to open just like the movie. And yeah, even though the book shipped 1 million copies, which no comic has done in over 20 years, it still sold out. I got a call from my editor-in-chief, Axel Alonso, who said, "Do you want to write Star Wars?" I just said, "Yep, I'm down for doing Star Wars." The Star Wars comic that we're doing, this first new one, takes place in the timeline of the original trilogy. So it takes place right after the original Star Wars, right after the Death Star blew up. So it's got, all the characters that we fell in love with as kids, all the characters from those original movies, Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie and the droids and Darth Vader. And that's an ongoing series, so we'll be following all those characters for the foreseeable future. When I first got the email that the book was going to sell 1 million copies, that did give me a little pause, because that makes it the highest selling comic book in over 20 years. But I'm really proud of how it came out. You can see that the audiences are out there beyond the one that we've had for so long. You just gotta, one, reach them, and two, give them something they respond to. I'm really lucky that I get to work from home and get to do something that I really enjoy.